you know the feeling, like the pit in your stomach, the tightness in your chest, the terror in your mind when you think and get caught up in the thinking of everything you should have done in the past and everything you think you should do in the future to be the best mom? Today we're going to break down mom guilt. What does it mean? Is it real? And what we can do to move past it, replacing it with better thoughts so that we can be of better service for ourselves and our children. So stay tuned. Today we're talking about mom guilt, and you might have felt this before. I think all women, all moms have mom guilt in varying degrees. Some might have a lot, and it can be definitely tied to anxiety. Anxiety can make it worse, and some moms might have less than other moms. I was talking about this to my husband the other day, telling him we're going through this situation with my youngest where I need more time to do work, but I was feeling so guilty of wanting that time, so guilty, because I think that the expectation in my head is like, I'm at home with my children as much as I can be. We need to be together like 24/7 for me to be a good mom, and it was really weighing on me. We recently made a decision to put her in pre-K every morning, which actually started this morning, and so definitely my mom guilt spiked over the weekend, and I'm trying to come down and deal with it because I know it is not serving me well. So what is mom guilt? Well, it's that inner dialogue that you might be familiar with that is telling you things like, you should have done this last week, or when your baby was born, you should have done this. It might revolve around birth, it might revolve around pregnancy, it might revolve around like since your children have been born. I should have done this. But it also stems from projecting into the future. I should do this to be a good mom. And so we have all of these big expectations of what we think we should have done and should do to live up to our expectation of being a good mom. So the problem with the mom guilt is that we never win. If we let mom guilt rule our lives and get control of our thoughts all the time, we never win. So if we're feeding into the mom guilt, it will never be satisfied. So it's really fear-based. Mom guilt is fear-based. We don't think we have done enough. We don't think we did the right thing. And it is this never-ending rabbit hole of fear-based thinking. So if you're to step back for a moment, think of like the last time you had that mom guilt and really objectively look at it if you can. You will be able to feel and notice where, like, what fear-based ideas or thoughts were feeding into that feeling of mom guilt. Mom guilt is actually, any kind of guilt is actually an illusion. And I know this might be hard to hear, and it's hard for me to hear too, is that we as moms, we actually create it. Nobody is telling us, here's the mom guilt you should be feeling. I'm dictating what you should be feeling right now. Nobody does that for us. The fact is that we do it to ourselves. And I know it sounds hard when you're thinking, well, my mind is doing it to me. My mind is controlling these thoughts. Well, in reality, we are in control, and our minds, the ego side of our mind, tries to take hold. That's the fear-based way of living, the fear-based way of thinking. And there is hope. There is, and I'll talk about some points coming up about what we can do, but when it's fear-based, we have to do the inner work of detaching from the fear-based thoughts and knowing that we are not the fear. We can separate, and we are not the fear. We are love. We are born of love, from love. And if we can, with our daily practices of meditation, journaling, and whatever else suits you, with those daily practices of giving back to ourselves and maintaining a strong mental state, we can begin to separate ourselves from this fear-based way of thinking, which is where mom guilt stems from. So of course, it's like, I'm not doing enough, I'm not being enough, and tell me how it feels. To me, it feels really crappy. To me, it feels really terrible. Like it feels like tightness in my chest. I often get a sore stomach from that fear-based way of thinking. And it really plagues my thoughts to a point where I feel it really, it triggers my anxiety. And so it's not doing the right thing to my mental state. Mom guilt does not feed into the self-maintenance and self-care that we should be giving back to ourselves as mothers. It actually really pulls from that, and it really deprives us of good feelings and good thoughts, and then we can step forward with good actions. So if we can separate ourselves away from this fear-based thinking and look at it objectively. So for example, I use this a lot because it's really helpful. If your friend was telling you all this stuff about her mom guilt, what would you lovingly tell her back? And that's what you have to do to yourself. And we have a really hard time doing this because we treat ourselves really poorly compared to the way we would treat a friend. So pretend you're your own friend and you're listening to, and I'll give you a journaling exercise at the end, but you're listening to and observing these fear-based thoughts that are mom guilt. And what would you say to yourself? So if your friend told you this, you'd probably tell her, hey, you're doing your best. You shouldn't be thinking these thoughts because you're really the mom that your children need you to be already. You don't have to do more or be more. You are perfect the way you are. And you would tell her these things. So I want you to role reverse and say those things to yourself. I know it's hard, but if we get in the habit of soothing the guilt, soothing the fear, and also choosing again. So choose again, observe it and say, hey, I'm feeling this mom guilt creeping in. I know it's destroying my day. I'm going to choose again. I know that I am not my fear. Fear is here. I am here. I am not my fear. We are two different things. But so often, this is what it does. It's so weaved into the normal way we think. It's so, it's there. It's like this plague in our body that has gotten into every cell that forces us to think in a particular way. But if we can just step back through our meditation practice of stillness and silence, we can begin to disassociate. We can begin to say, that's not me. I'm love. I love my children. I love myself. And those fear-based thoughts, they're still going to come. Don't get me wrong. It's never ever going to be perfect. But now what you can do is you can call it out and say, this is not serving me. This is actually stripping away the joy in my day. I've acknowledged that I'm thinking that. It's fine that I'm thinking that, but I'm actually going to choose something else. I'm going to choose to think that I am okay. I am enough. I'm enough for myself. I'm enough for my children. I deserve to be happy. And then we can shift that perspective to go down the road of love. And I know that sounds corny, but it's really the only way, is to reroute, I guess, love or positivity, whatever you want to call it, joy, whatever resonates with you. So we have to shift to that more loving perspective, loving ourselves and knowing that we're doing our best at any given moment. So to shift into this more love-based mentality, I have 5 very simple things that you can do every day to begin reprogramming our minds. It's not easy. Fear is the loudest, the loudest, and the wrong voice. So it's the one that you hear the first. Like, so if you're thinking about something in your head, like a decision, fear is the one that yells at you to do something. It's a first voice, it is the loudest, and it is always wrong. And that comes from Marianne Williamson, A Course in Miracles. It is always wrong, okay? So let's shift it over. Number 1 is identify. Often any kind of fear-based thinking can be outed. We can shine the light on that fear-based thinking by just writing it down. Do you have those days where your mind is so full and it seems so chaotic? Have you ever done this? But then you write it down and you're like, oh, or you talk to someone about it and you're like, oh, that doesn't sound so bad. Fear wants to stay inside. It doesn't want to be exposed. So if we can expose the fear, the mom guilt, it actually weakens it, completely weakens it. So we write it down. identify what's triggering it. We write it down. So we write down the fear, we write down the guilt, and we identify, is this like, where is this coming from? Is this an external expectation that I feel? Is it an internal expectation that I've placed on myself? And is it really serving me? Where is this coming from? Number 2, is this healthy or productive? Well, no, it's usually not. Sometimes, like, don't get me wrong, my husband said to me, I was feeling really guilty about sending my daughter to pre-K every morning, even though I know she'd love it. I was feeling really guilty. And I was like, oh, why do I feel this guilt? And my husband's like, well, and he sees a lot of like fear-based stuff in his line of work, but he said to me, it's okay to feel a little bit of guilt. A little bit of guilt is actually quite healthy, because if you didn't feel guilt, you'd probably just drop off your child in a playground and run and like disappear for coffee. Like, oh yeah, okay. So a little bit of guilt is okay. Like, it helps us to stay aware of safety for our children, right? To feel that, okay, is this okay? It lets us like scope it out and feel out the playing area. But it's not okay when it brings us down and it makes us crazy, okay? So is this healthy or productive? It's okay if you feel a little bit of mom guilt. Maybe you told your teenage daughter that she was not allowed to sleep over at someone's house that you don't know. And she yells at you, she's mad at you, and you feel a little bit of mom guilt. I think in that situation, it's totally healthy mom guilt. You're like, oh, I'm so, like, you feel bad that she can't go, but you know it is in everyone's best interest if she doesn't go. Well, my mom guilt, on the other hand, was like so debilitating, and it was not healthy. She was in good hands, like for pre-K, she's in good hands. I know she's going to have fun. It's going to allow me the mental space and time for work and for self-care that I need. And then we'll have every afternoon together. So my mom guilt was not healthy and not productive. Number 3, let go, work to. This is not easy, and it takes some diligent work, but work to let go of the fear and expectations over time. Relax, right? Number 3 is believe in yourself and forgive yourself. Believe that you are making the right decisions for you and your family. The more you dwell in the wishy-washy area of like, oh, I don't know if that was right. I don't know if, and actually I'm jumping ahead of myself. That's number 5. Sorry, backing up. Number 4, believe in yourself and forgive yourself. Forgive your thoughts. Say, hey, I notice that I'm projecting a fear-based thought. I forgive the thought. I'm just going to choose otherwise. Forgive, forgive, forgive. Number 5 is work on being more decisive. I really struggle with this. So decisions come up and I'm so wishy-washy, I'm all over the place. This just creates further mental insanity, and it creates more guilt when we're indecisive. So work on being more decisive. Make a decision from your heart, what you feel is right, and then stick with it, and don't even go down that avenue of being indecisive and questioning yourself. So it goes back to believing yourself, forgiving yourself, and then work on being decisive. Stick to what you've just decided on, and then don't let yourself go down that avenue of guilt, worry, and apprehension, where you're like, I don't know if that was the right decision. So I hope this helped you. I hope this helped you just to call it out. We all feel it to varying degrees. It's just what we choose to do with it, and knowing that the power is really within our own control. I hope that you feel empowered to take control of your mom guilt, observe it, recognize what it's doing to you, which is nothing good, and then move to replace those mom guilt thoughts with thoughts that soothe you and support you. Have a great day. I hope this helped you. Bye, everybody.